Over here, you were talking to him about salting of meat, kosher meat. There's no halakha in the Torah that says that you have to salt kosher meat. All it says that if you want to eat kosher meat that is cooked, you've got to make sure that after the ritual slaughtering takes place, the shechita, the ritual slaughtering, even if the cow was healthy before it was slaughtered, and the shechet was a kosher shechet, he knew all the laws the way it should be, he not only knew the laws, he knew how to do it, and he did it right. Even if he does everything shechita the way it should be, still there's two things that are not permitted to be eaten in a kosher cow or sheep or goat or whatever slaughtered. Or one of the things that's not permitted to be eaten, even though everything is kosher, is the blood. The one that, not all the blood that is in the tissue is not considered a prohibition of blood. Call it Isser Dam, a prohibition of blood. The blood that has come into the chambers and the bigger blood vessels and inside the heart chambers, that's considered an Isser Dam, a prohibition of blood. And blood that comes to the surface of the skin, of things, for instance, by it moving, that's considered prohibited to eat. The Jew is not permitted to eat blood. But blood that remains in the tissue is permissible to the Jew. So therefore, theoretically, once the animal has been slaughtered properly, if you wash away the surface blood that came to the surface, if you wish, you could eat it raw, without any salting whatsoever. There would be no prohibition whatsoever. Of course, it's pretty hard to eat, but theoretically you could. There's another portion of the a cow that
can salt the meat then?
Oh, we salt the meat because most of us like to eat meat cooked. When the cooking action brings the blood from the inside the tissue to the surface and making it prohibited blood. It becomes prohibited blood, then it makes it's not kosher, it makes not kosher the rest of it. So in order to avoid making it prohibited blood, we have we soak the meat in water for half an hour, and then we put it on a salting board where it's slanted and got holes in the bottom of it, so to drip out, and we salt it on all sides with coarse salt, coarse kosher salt, thick salt. And after you salt it, you leave it even one piece on top of another, on all 6 sides of each piece of meat you salt. And you let it stay in the salt, and it drains out. The salt has a draining, draws out the blood, because the surface of the meat has been wet. The wetting action with the draws out the blood, and the blood drops down. That blood, of course, is not permitted to be eaten. And you leave it in the salt for approximately an hour. After an hour's time, you wash off the salt 3 times. What is usually done is that you fill first some water in the basin where you're going to wash it out, and then you start washing it out. Some people remove the salt the first time around, and then they soak it 3 times in a row. After they soak it 3 times in a row, then the meat can be. We say that even if you cook the meat, what comes out is considered juice rather than blood, and permissible to be eaten cooked.
After the meat is kosher, couldn't that meat be eaten raw?
You can eat it,
even without cooking?
Yes, but you still have to wash off the surface for surface salt. We say that once we soak it the second time around, it stops up and it doesn't allow it to come out anymore. That's the halakha.
Why didn't you ask him so? That's when he was working.
See, lately, it's never been since you take a piece of meat.
Yeah.
And a piece of meat is.
Oh, you one piece.
One piece.
Yeah.
One piece.
Yeah.
You take this piece. This the things don't come in.
Huh?
Yeah, the meat. Right?
Yeah, you may.
Yeah.
One stick of meat, even if
one big huge piece.
I'm not serious.
So what?
Yeah. I buy meat too. I think the meat is not. So it's because it's a one piece. It never got through. Never got through. And when I take the meat, she cooks it. It's with the blood and everything, because there's no blood can get through.
It depends how they did it.
They put it in one piece.
Again,
Yes.
It is perfectly legitimate if you have a whole side of beef. First of all, a whole side of beef.
Yeah.
Provided, in addition to that, you have to worry about the height. There is certain forbidden fatty tissue that cannot be eaten. That's the second thing, prohibition. It's got to be cut out first before you do any salting. It so happens in the cow's body, there's approximately 111 areas where forbidden fatty tissue is. 108 of those areas are in the hind quarters. So as a practical matter in America, most of the time, we only eat the forequarters of the cow.
What kind of meat is the hindquarters?
The hindquarters, I mean, a sirloin steak, that's perfectly not permissible to be eaten.
What else?
There's a tremendous amount of all the areas that they used to, when they had the temple, they used to cut out and offer as a burnt offering to God. So there are very many areas that are closed and described. But you have to be a very skilled in the capacity to cut it out, because after you cut it out, the meat doesn't look too good. But that's the other part. No, what's your shot at?
My shot is we can get the blood out.
If we have a cow that in an hour's time, provided that it was soaked properly, and in an hour's time, if the whole thing, if you go all the way around it, on all sides,
Both sides. You gotta turn the meat over.
yeah, everything, all sides, then in an hour's time, it even will soak, it will get out of even the biggest side.
I see the meat.
I don't know how they salt it.
I see the meat that was never touched, just because the water doesn't get through.
Who do you get your meat from?
Middle.
You know it's got the big soaking place?
I know.
You can't say that he doesn't.
I didn't say
salt
nothing.
it.
I just said.
I remember my Rabbi, all of a sudden, Rabbi David Kaganov, he was coming to America, and he sees big sides of beef hanging in the kosher section. So he had the Tainus Mashkiach. He said, when are you going to salt it? He said, why don't you taste it? Tasted it, thought it was salted already. The whole big side.
The whole side is salted.
Yeah. Salt the big side one time. I know nowadays you get a little piece and we salt it all sides, but you could theoretically salt the whole thing as long as you cut out the chayla before.
We got to cut out the
It's got to be done beforehand. But this thing. Now, the whole reason that we salt the meat is not because there's any commandment to salt the meat. As a matter of fact, it's just called the good advice. Good advice. Yeah, we have another tape. See if the other side used?
I can't tell.
We'll try it.
All right, I'll put it in and see if it plays. Okay, I'll stop.
Better forward it a little bit, way down, and just make sure that it's,
No.
because you might erase something.
I don't think so. It played long enough to know if it...
All right, now, so it's just considered an eighth table. For instance, we have a certain portion of the cow meat that the salt will not do the trick of taking out all the blood. That's the liver. The liver's got so much blood in it that salting won't do the trick. So what we do, there's an alternate way of taking out the blood. Putting it in an open flame, taking out the blood. We'll take out the blood too. In that case, the drippings are not kosher. You understand? Do anything else. You have to boil on open spit with drops. It's not kosher. You understand that? Does that answer your question? There's no law that says you have to salt meat. You understand? But in order for you to eat it, you can't eat blood.
get all the blood out as much
So you understand that? Okay. Now, all the processes of salting, of slaughtering, we have in this week's Sedra. It says in this week's Sedra, on chapter 14, it says like this.
But I got kashas for 12 and 13.
Oh, we can wait. Is that right?
When we come upon it, then we'll...
All right, then. All right, now.
Kasha is... Yeah.
I know that question.
Asherayim. What is the Asherim? To burn the Asherim with fire. It earlier had said that you should break down their altars and everything and dispose of their gods. As in the sentence before. This is sentence 3 in
Chapter 12, sentence 3.
Yeah. What is the Asherim? What is it referring to?
Those are trees planted for Sema Veda Zora. Trees planted. The whole tree was the worship.
Then the leaves or the bark.
That's the Rashi.
Rashi answers my question.
Yeah.
A tree that is worshipped. Okay.
No, any kind of tree they would decide to worship.
But these trees are still in existence, apparently.
Not necessarily.
And if people aren't worshiping them, it's all right for them to grow. I don't know what tree it is.
How do you know?
I don't know.
After all, the trees don't last forever.
True, but they drop seeds and whatnot, they regrow, but the people that worship them are no longer in existence.
That's for sure.
Apparently the tree is all right.
No, if it was used for a Vedazor, you should chop it down.
Yeah, at that particular time.
Yeah.
Now, the next kasha is on sentence 9.
Second sign.
What chapter?
Chapter 12.
I'm going straight ahead wherever I have.
Okay, 9.
It says, it's talking about
What's your question?
All right.
See, now that you have Rashi in English, you got all the
I didn't
questions.
even the Rashi.
I know, you got all the answers too.
All right, the kasha is on El. Now, it's talking about that
It took the Jewish people 7 years to conquer fight the wars that was necessary to conquer the 31 kings on the west side of the Jordan.
Okay.
And it took them 7 more years to divide the land among those tribes that needed the land. So until they come to the Menucha, until the resting from war, and Anakala, until they come to the inheritance, when they divide at that point. So until you come to that thing, there was a heter, there was a prohibition to offer temporary sacrifices on temporary altars. Now, don't have to come to the central Mishkan, the central tabernacle. You can offer temporary offerings if it was of a nature of a free will offering or a Thanksgiving offering, rather than something that you're obligated to bring because of a sin. A sin offering still has to be brought to the central Mishkan, but any of a free will offering or of that nature could be brought in one of these pomos, one of these temporary altars. You understand that?
Yes, sentence 14.
14.
In one of your tribes. The place in one of your tribes there. Now, I thought there was only one place that the Mishkan was. You mean there was
several places
in 12 tribes? Each tribe had a place? No. What does it mean?
It was
in one of the tribes.
There will be eventually a permanent site for the Beit HaMikdash.
Yeah.
Before it comes to King Yerushalayim, it was in several other places. And we kept on moving around for time to time, depending on certain
but only in one particular place amongst all Israel at any one particular time. The Mishkan, apparently, we're talking about.
The Mishkan was there for a time, and then it kept on moving around until finally David brought it to Yerushalayim.
All right, the next kash is on sentence 17.
17.
That you should not eat within your gates the tithe of thy corn. Now, doesn't that mean if you tithe something that's giving 10% for the poor,
no.
How can you eat a tithe
No.
for you? It doesn't belong to you anymore.
Meiser goes to the Levi.
Yes.
It doesn't go to the Oni.
Okay, so the Meiser.
There's a Meiser Oni too, but that's something different.
Oh, so this is referring to the Meiser that went to the Levi. Once you set that aside, you cannot eat of it. Use it in any way. All right, going
There's also a Meiser Oni. You would give for the poor. There was a Meiser Rishon, you call this the Meiser we give to the Levi. And then a Meiser Sheni
was the Oni?
No, it's for the Balabos. It would be set aside for the farmer himself and his family. They would take the proceeds of that and go to Yerushalayim and celebrate the Shalosh Regolim, Pesach, Shavuot,
now,
and
was
Sukkot.
that usually?
No, that was lesser amount. Meiser Rishon was 10%, but this was a lesser amount.
Sheni was on
the lesser amount. The first year and the second year after the cycle would be Meiser Sheni. The third year of Meiser will be given, instead of Meiser Sheni, was given a poor section for the poor.
Okay.
Then again, they started the cycle again. Fourth year and fifth year, Meiser Sheni, and the sixth year, Meiser Rishon and Meiser Oni.
The next kash is on sentence 26.
Sentence 26.
What is it talking about? Asher Yihyeh Lecha, Rak Kadoshecha, only your holy things which you have, and your vows you shall bear. What holy things What is it referring to? Vows, I understand that you have to bear your vows. But what is it talking about? What does it mean?
Kodshim. They offer, we shut secular slaughtering. In the time of the Beit HaMikdash and the Mishkan, they used to also slaughter for holy offering, for the sacrifice, and to eat it
only in the
Mishkan.
I see it. Special set aside. Now, the next one is on sentence 30. How can one be ensnared by the oaths after, if you destroyed them, they have no value? How can you be interested in that? That's saying there, you should be careful and not be caught up with any of the idols that you destroyed, that you came across, and that you inquire not after their God, saying,
Rashi tells us,
what does it mean?
Rashi says after you've seen that they have been destroyed before you because of their God, you have to think about this and understand that the reason they were destroyed because of their evil actions. And they had done wicked things. Therefore you should also not emulate those evil actions, so that in turn, God forbid, you should be destroyed. In other words, you should learn from this example that God punishes Rishoim. People that act wickedly will be punished by God, and you shouldn't emulate that type of wicked type of action. You understand that?
Yes, yes. Now, the next chapter, 13, in sentence 4.
That's over and above not worshiping idols, obviously. It means also any kind of wicked action.
Anything that was utilized in their worship.
Or even wicked action. You're not supposed to do wicked things besides idol worship. You're not supposed to do wicked things. The idol worshippers used to sometimes sacrifice their own children in the name of their religion, which is ridiculous.
Talking about sentence 4, in which it says you should listen to the words of a false prophet or a dreamer of dreams. Why? It says, Ki Manasseh, because God is testing you, putting you to proof, to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your soul. So, if you want to expound on that, it means that even though a person may have an interest or an attraction to follow prophets, so to speak, it's God testing the person. If the person is...
I'll give you an example. The Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us, even if the false prophet comes to say, look, I'll give you a sign that I'm telling you the truth. I'll have the sun stand still right in heaven. Even if he says that, you're not to believe him. If he tells you anything contrary to the words of God, anything contrary to the Torah, even if the sun stands still right in the middle of heaven, you're not to believe him. Because God is testing you. You should not assume that God is going to change his Torah because there might be a temporary change in the natural. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. The next sentence.
This separates the men from the boys. All the time people say, I'm religious and I'll do this and I'll do that. Then somebody will show him a little thing, and immediately he's off and running to do a Veda Zorah. That's ridiculous. You have to be committed to cling to God's Torah. There's no way in which somebody can persuade you it's not true. How to tell you to do something against the Torah, you're not to listen to it.
Suppose we don't speak against her. He said he came in the name of the God, name of our God.
There again, it's a question of understanding what he is asking you to do. If he doesn't ask you to go against the Torah, then you have no quarrel with it.
But they even wanted to kill the true prophets.
True, again, but they're not supposed to kill true prophets. But you've got to have enough an understanding of what is good and what is proper. They try to...
Yeah, they're both going. It was for maybe another 2 months. For the holidays.
Go. Well, you're doing very well.
We were on...
okay, I got it.
We were on Yud Gimel. I described to you Gemara in Sanhedrin, Rabbi Yossi, I region a little bit. He said, how is it possible that a Novi HaSheker would have
a power over forces of nature to that extent that he could mislead people.
How could it be
So
a false prophet?
he feels that it's only that he had been a proper Novi up to this point, and so he was able to do the nest, and then he all of a sudden he started to tarpus raw and be a false type, and so therefore he tried to lead them astray. But regardless of how it comes about, you're not supposed to follow it. That's as simple as that.
Says something that
Whatever it is.
the next sentence 5. My question is on the ufkolo. It says, after the Lord your God should you walk, in him you should fear, and his commandments you should keep, and unto his voice should hearken.
The soul of the voice of the prophets.
But we don't have prophets today.
We have their sayings.
We have the saints. So we're supposed to listen to when the
Torah
Torah is read. It's like the prophet talking to us.
It means we're supposed to go and observe their commandments that they have told us. The prophet and the Moshe Rabbeinu, they've told us the commandments. These are the commandments we're supposed to listen to. What the prophets have told us.
And his commands you should keep. It's mitzvah tishmoru, I understand. But then
that's Torah's Moshe.
Torah's Moshe. And the rest, kolos tishmo, could be the other Nevi'im. That would not refer to
the other in the prophet.
Torah Shebapez, that doesn't refer to that. It's referring to the Nevi'im, what they said.
Obviously.
Okay.
Obviously, all the Torah Shebaksav is interpreted according to Torah Shebapez. It would not be proper to go and interpret this big deal like just the ordinary plain meaning, because a lot of times the plain meaning is not appropriate for the interpretation.
Oh, I got another. I'm just until I find where I gotta find it. Here,
Chapter what?
Okay, now it's chapter Yud Gimel, sentence 16.
16.
All right, my question is, it says, and you should kill the inhabitants of the city with the edge of the sword, destroying it utterly and all that is therein. Now this is my kasha is on Ve'es Habahemon, and the cattle thereof with the edge of the sword. The poor cattle, what did they do? I can understand the people that are bad, that are serving idols. You're supposed to destroy them from the land that you're going to occupy. But what's with the cattle?
Wait. What is this talking about?
I don't understand why it says the
We're talking about a situation, Iranidachas, presumably. Iranidachas is a city, a Jewish city, where there isn't such a thing as even one mezuzah in the whole city.
A Jewish city? No, we're not talking about it. I thought we're talking about these are not people that observe that you're going to...
If he'll start with Yud Gimel.
All right, Yud Gimel. Yud Gimel is here. And if you should hear tell concerning of one of thy cities, that's your own, which the Lord thy God giveth you...
Chazal tell us it never happened.
That there was a city of this type.
Yeah. It never happened that there was that city. This is just admonition. It's never taken place. Baruch Hashem.
All right, thank God.
Never should take place.
All right, now, next, here's a question mark.
They have such perversion that the Jews are so veit that they can't, that they completely think that it's a terrible thing.
Chapter Yud Daled, the very first sentence. Again, you are children of the Lord your God. You should not cut yourselves nor make any baldness between your eyes. What does that mean? Was it customary? Does it mean over here? Or does it mean on top?
The Goyim used to mutilate themselves to show their grief for their dead.
Yeah.
And the Jewish people are not permitted to show extraordinary grief.
But when it says Bein Einechem,
you are not
permitted. I also want to know, where is it referring to between the eyes? What does that mean?
It means the Goyim used to go and mutilate themselves. They used to mutilate themselves to show their grief. And Torah Tamima tells us that it's not a permissible thing for Jews.
Oh, it says, Rashi says near the forehead.
Yes.
Okay, that must
You're
mean
not permissible.
Must mean up here.
Yes, well that was
where we put the stone.
Yeah, it's not permissible to face himself.
Okay.
And anyway, the doing is prohibited too.
Prohibited, but here you might think that since you have grief that you can display it in such a fashion, they say no. You're not permitted to overextend yourself
in relation to grief?
Sentence 5 in the same chapter. I don't know what the Dishon, what kind of animal.
Now you got me a good
All right,
point.
you don't know.
I unfortunately, I can't even understand the English.
Oh, Rashi says an ox to the force.
All right, fine. Again, these animals, Moshe Rabbeinu had to parade them in front of Jewish people. That this is this and this is that.
All right.
I must admit that I don't remember when Moshe Rabbeinu was painting in front of there.
Now, the next
They don't have
sentence,
those animals now anyway.
I presume they have them, but I don't know which is called
they have a
Dishon.
biblical zoo in
They're guessing. I'm not knowledgeable. I'll be made a limit. Not only I don't know the Hebrew, when he tells me in English, I know what it means. Even I don't even know what it is.
the next sentence, after the sentence 5 enumerates specifically which are the animals that are kosher to be eaten, specifically mentions it. Where does sentence 6 come along? There's no necessity for it. It says, and, that's a vav in there that starts the sentence off. And every other beast or animal that has a split hoof and chews the cud, that you can eat. Now, is there another possible animal besides the ones that are enumerated?
We're talking about.
We don't know of any.
Would you listen?
Yeah.
We're talking about. No, we're talking about the blood.
The paw or the...
No, we're talking about the animal inside the mother animal that's being born.
Yeah.
We're talking about these types. We're talking about the what you call them? Embryos.
The embryos. Yeah.
We're
Not
talking
fully
about-
developed.
Yeah. We're
This
talking
is permissibly. That's what it's
What?
referring to.
We're talking about these types. That's what we're talking
That's
about.
what it means by the whole.
The concept that the embryo is a limb of the mother.
Uh-huh.
And theoretically, if you chef the mother,
Yeah.
you should be able to eat the embryo
Yeah.
as well.
But that means you don't have to chef the embryo.
That is sometimes the case. And then there's shilas. What if the embryo, after
so
the
developed,
mother is chefed, the embryo comes
still
out,
lives.
and you cannot go and chef it. You can't make a tikkun to go and chef it. Query what would happen if it starts living and having offspring. What is the consequences of that? Most animals have to be prepared, and that you can machshir it by chefing them. And this one, how can you machshir it if it's already chefted already?
What's machshir?
To make it permissible to be... there's a lot of shilas involved there. We can get into
all
it
right.
at a
Now,
different time, perhaps.
Then it's 8. Sentence 8 is talking about the chazi. And it says, some loaves and their carcasses you should not touch. What does that mean? When they're dead or when they're alive?
They are some...
What is that? You understand my question, because as an example, you can go to a zoo and they have little piglets running around or stuff. Is it terrible if one touches such an animal? It says you should not touch. You go.
What?
Rashi says, our rabbi's verse in reference to the first say unto... I see what Rashi's saying, but it's not answering my particular question. Yeah, 8. The carcasses. And the carcasses you should not touch. Our rabbis interpreted this verse in reference to the regel, the 3 that one must purify himself, prepare himself for the festival.
Yes.
And what's that got to do with the touching?
That's what it's referring to. That's what the rabbis say. I might infer that they should be prohibited for the entire year. Therefore, Scripture says, say unto the Kohanim, if the uncleanliness from a corpse which is stringent, the priests are forewarned regarding it, but the Israelites are not forewarned. Then regarding the uncleanliness of a carcass which is slight
Our time
also.
we don't have the Tumah, Tara, and Ganson. We're not knowing.
He's talking about a carcass, a
Yeah.
dead one, but what
Carcass
about
means
one?
dead. Carcass means
dead.
only dead. Alive.
Nevela would be
A dead pig.
We're not knowing this banin on this time, but you'll notice there are 4 different types of animals that are mentioned here. 3 of them are and one of them has a complete split hoof. and does not chew the cud. Now this is found in the Torah, and when the Torah was given, mankind presumably was living around the Fertile Crescent, a little place around there, someplace else. We have since discovered countries like Australia, New Zealand, and everything, and we have yet not found another animal
anywhere
in the whole world that has got these characteristics, one or the other, the characteristics other than these. It's to prove to you that this is one of the proofs that Torah means Torah is from heaven, that you should understand. We didn't find any new kind of animal. Either the animal corresponds to a cow type of animal, like the bism here. We have it like a bism is a cow type animal, or it does not conform to this. You've never found another type of animal that has one of these two characteristics of Tara, either Malira or
not kosher because of
split hip. The other three animals don't have.
There is no other animal in existence that
It's like a pig.
has one of these two characteristics.
It has a split hoof, but it doesn't chew its cud.
only the one.
Yes.
That's right. No results. And this is thousands of years later. After those days, they only lived in a certain area, and since that time, other continents have been discovered with hundreds or thousands or millions of other animals. Yet they don't fall into any of these. There's nothing that other than what it states here that falls.
Any other Shiloh?
Yeah. All right. Next, sentence 22 in chapter 14.
22. Okay, 22.
I realize the sentence is referring to Zarepha, the seeds that a farmer, he's got to put aside, he's got a tithe that's put aside a tenth of all these seeds year by year. What does he do with them? Who does he give them to? To the Levi? He doesn't have land.
What?
Who does he give the seeds to? What for? The guy doesn't. Does the Levi have fields that he owns that he can grow things in, or the Kohen? No.
What?
Maybe you can sell them.
He sells it, and then what does he do with the proceeds? Give to the Levi.
I mean, the Levi, he gives the Levi lives from that.
Aser Taser. Okay. I didn't know, because it's talking about seeds. I don't understand it.
Well, either he sells the seeds and gives the money to the Levi, or gives the Levi the seeds, and the Levi will sell the seeds.
Okay. The next sentence is number 26, in which it says that when you got all the money and you come to Yerushalayim, the base of Mikdash, whatever, and you should bestow the money for whatsoever your soul desired, for meat, oxen,
That is
sheep.
the Meister Sheni I was telling you about.
Yeah,
Meister
okay.
Sheni.
But my kasha is, it says, B'yayin uva shechor. How come the Torah permits strong drink? Wine I can understand, makes you happy, you feel good. But it's permitting here strong drink that's real. That's my kasha.
My grandfather, my mother's father, my mother used to tell me, when he got a little older, he liked a little schnapps before the meal.
Yeah,
That's the first thing you do, take it out. That's it.
Tons of it should be done, but I'm just surprised to see Shechor.
Obviously, there's no Isur with them.
No. What does Rashi say on Shechor, or does he say? Yes, strong drink. This is a specification. I don't know what parot means. Oh, or for whatever thy so asks of thee. Scripture again includes in the general statement, how is it in the case of the particulars mentioned here? They are products of what is born of the earth and is fitting as food for man. So anything that comes from even the strong liquor, it's from grain. Now, at the end of 3 years of this sentence 28, you got to bring the tithe, apparently, to your. That means, that means the tithe is 10%, and every 3 years, so you've got 30%, 10, 10, and 10.
You don't have to save it up, you can bring it every year.
Oh, you could bring it, but you can't stay away from Yerushalayim for longer than
Well, you should go
3 years?
No, you should go
You can go-
3 times a year.
Oh, 3 times a year. So why does it say at the end of every...
Every 2 years, a new cycle begins.
What kind of a cycle?
I told you, the first year and the second year, you have to give Meiser, Rishon, and Meiser, and in the third year, you give Meiser, Meiser only, for poor people. So every third and sixth years, you give Meiser only instead of Meiser Sheni. Chapter what?
The next chapter, number 4. Now it's talking here that there shall be no poor or needy among you. If you do the mitzvahs, God will bless the land, and there will be enough. Fine. So my problem is that later in the Sedra, there's a pasuk that says, here it is, pasuk 11. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore I command you, saying, thou shalt open your hand to your brother, to the poor and the needy in the land. So how do you reconcile these two? Here it says that there won't be any needy among you because God will bless you. In pasuk 4, that's providing you diligently do all the mitzvahs that are necessary.
Look at Rashi.
Okay, I didn't look in Rashi. Number 4, I'll do it.
There will not be among you any Homer, and later on it says Kiloya, not lacking any poor. El-Zman is the time, the time you do the will of God. The poor will be among others.
Yes.
And not among you. But you don't do the will of God, the poor will be among you. Okay? Now,
so therefore,
but the pasuk here is an admonition that the Jewish people must avoid themselves against poverty.
They should
avoid poverty. How do you avoid poverty? You avoid poverty. The Gemara says in Bognatia, Lamed Gimel, that if you have a lost article and your father has a lost article, you may, if you wish, look for yours first. Because you have the obligation to avoid poverty. If you have a lost article and your Rabbi has a lost article, you may, if you wish, look for yours first, because you have an obligation to avoid poverty.
Okay.
The Gemara goes on to say, even though you do have this right, you should not insist upon it unless it involves a big loss.
Okay.
But that's it is. In other words, there is a general thing. For instance, a person must avoid poverty. He must not impoverish himself by not taking care of his property. See, if you will listen to God and do what He wants you to do, then you will not be impoverished.
In the morning and go to your tent. Towards evening, maybe 7 say. Hayom. One thing, the terminology Hayom usually implies that you should understand that the Torah is not something that is outdated. It is quite modern. You must understand the Torah is prepared and as of today. It is not something that's outdated. The Torah remains with us.
Why is the Mount Gerizim brought up and the curse on Mount Abel? What's that all about?
That is after they will cross the Yarden, the Greek people will gather at that place, and they will, several of the tribes will be on by one mountain and several on the other mountain, and they will make an oath where there's certain mitzvahs that they will do and certain averas they will avoid. And they will all swear and say amen, and they will ultimately say a bracha, blesses the person who does it, and then later on they will turn around and say, curse the person that doesn't do that, and then go on to the next one. And there's a whole series of them. You'll look in the book that you will talk. They did it, and also here later on in the book, there's a list of the things that you will be required at that time. Here, and that's the boring Kosher. No, Kosher I got. What your day? Kosher your day. To bless the people upon Shachar and Joseph and Binyamin. All the present-day Jews we know of, Levi and Yehuda and Binyamin. All the Jews we have to present day. They wound up
In other words, we're all descendants of the ones that went on Gerizim. And the ones that went on the other one, that's not fair. That makes a person become superstitious that they were on the other side of that.
What was the
The others should too, yes.
Right. So they would say certain blessings,
Yeah,
certain-
yeah, that's right.
and here's a whole list of them, what will happen.
Is this the protocol?
It's not exactly that, but it is a series of curses and blessings that these people took upon themselves.
I think I've told you in the past, when I used to daven in, he's not here today. Ellis was accounted for a good 5, 6, 7 years. Anyway, so I could see these people there, they were very superstitious.
Yeah.
And even the bar, they don't got anybody. I want it.
My Rabbi said that there's nothing to worry about.
Absolutely.
All you have to do is be a good Jew. If you're not a good Jew,
Yeah. So he's telling you, you're getting close today. Yeah. So I knew. Yeah, I had a standing invitation to twice a year.
well, what else?
You should ask her some questions that look up her. What bothers you?
I'm giving you this.
You're giving it right off the top, yeah, but I haven't looked at the rock. Yeah, you should do. What does it mean? All right, I see the word rekom. We're told that we should not appear before the Lord empty, and it means that a person that's wealthy should bring many offerings, burnt offerings with them, and peace offerings, signs. But we of the present day and age, when we appear before God in getting an aliyah to read His Torah, do we make offerings? Do we donate? I don't see it happening. I'm trying to say that we would apply this to our own present or set of circumstances. That when we come to a shul on a Yom Tov and we get another
Group that come in there and start against Hashem or start their own religion, that you should act, kill them.
This is and to avoid certain things. People don't necessarily enforce. Any further questions? You see, we have kosher slaughter. If you look through the entire Torah, you won't find anything that tells you how to slaughter kosher. If you look you won't find how all these laws, kosher slaughtering, are a tradition from Moses at Sinai, from God. They come in the Gemara. You're supposed to avoid 5 major misactions that you must avoid to have a kosher. You're not supposed to have fear. You're not supposed to pause in the slaughtering process. It must be a continuing stroke. You can go back and forth all day if you got to, but you're not supposed in the slaughtering process. Fear, you're not supposed to press that. You got to have not only a smooth knife, so fear drugs the top. You're not supposed to stick it inside the neck and cut towards the surface. That's the only way you can cause kosher treatment. You're only supposed to cut in a certain area of the neck. Not too high and not too low. Basically, it's below, some distance below the Adam's apple, above the certain area. Too high or too low is not permitted. You're not supposed to. What you're supposed to cut is the food pipe, and that's what you're supposed to cut. And you're not supposed to tear it. That means you can't have a nick on the knife. We call it a pejima, a blemish. So the knife must be smooth, cut, and you go make a motion. Those 4 or 5 nicks make the animal not kosherly slaughtered, but in a veil, like a died a natural death.
But he didn't do it perfectly. It wasn't a clean throat cut at the right spot, that the blood would shoot out right away. If he did something that caused, I'm a kid. I have trouble in the learning process. I only have but here I have a copy of my Kabbalah. I explored it, and this copy is my ador. This was given by the Rabbi, the Kosher himself. He taught me how to prepare the meal, and you can feel it. If there's the slightest mix, it's not permitted to be used. And this is the Kabbalah that was written by the handwriting of Rabbi Jacob Greenberg. There was a dean at the time, and it's signed by Rabbi Jacob Greenberg and also by Rabbi David Kazan. It's a photograph of it. I have the original, of course, in my office. And this, of course, is my
6 rabbis.
Yeah. If you can slaughter chicken, that would be great. So you'd have to go, take some kind of a refresher course or something.
I would, in any eventuality, I have reviewed those, so my, even though I got it, I can.
So what about a cow?
I know the procedure.
But would you be able to chef the cow if you want?
I know.
So you don't have to.
No, I would need I could get it. I know that to become a rabbi, you have to know the laws.
Yeah.
And I know the procedure. I have babied over 500 reyes, 500 lungs in the stockyard. I have done that. So I know the procedure. I know what to follow. He's supposed to know the laws by heart to the point that he can, if there's a difficulty in some problem, he's got to be able to ask the rabbi. But usually you have the sheikhut knows what he's doing, and sometimes there are some rabbonim, but the sheikhut himself must know. He appears, that shows that he would have been about 20, 21 years old. And what's the question? Then don't go down to Egypt. This were the only ancient nation that has existed for all these years. All the other ancient nations have disappeared.
I'm thinking that his understanding of what means that everything is good for him. And that's what he understands.
Yeah, then Jacob.
He understands the blessing.
We think the blessing means that you got
blessed with
well, we are kids. We are blessed. We are blessed with God's Torah. It's a beautiful blessing. Other blessings.
It's not. It looks like a secret all the time.
So there it is. 5, 14, and the whole will stand towards the east, and towards the north, and towards the country is something that will overcome the standards of strict justice. And you say from that you learn even by an impediment to doing something proper. That will be a blessing to God and grace to God. And that's what the Torah. I happen to over here in the Torah that says that you have to salt kosher meat. All it says that if you want to eat kosher meat that is cooked